It's another edition of Tennis This Week, and drum roll! It's Australian Open week. I am super excited. I'm sure you are too, because the first Grand Slam of the year, the Australian Open, is upon us. And while we are 2 weeks into the season, this kind of makes it official. So much has happened already, and with the Australian Open, so much more is about to go down in the world of tennis. My name is Biola Solace-Chukwu, the tennis crazy lady, and this is Tennis This Week, the Australian Open preview edition. Let's do this. It's no longer news that Carlos Alcaraz, the world number one, is missing the Australian Open due to injury, but as a result, world number two and defending champion Rafael Nadal is top seed, and he will be facing a banana peel in the first round. That's British rising star Jack Draper. I was absolutely mind blown when I saw that draw, and this is very dangerous for Rafael Nadal, who hasn't started the year brilliantly, lost to Cameron Norrie and Alex de Minaur at the United Cup, didn't end 2022 in great fashion as well. So he is in danger. Even if he does get through Jack Draper, in the second round could be facing Brandon Nakashima. In the third round, he might be facing Yoshihito Nishioka, who has started the year really well. Could be facing the same guy who beat him at the US Open last year, Francis Tiafoe, in the first round. So it gets difficult with every round for Rafael Nadal, whose body is somewhat giving up on him at the moment. But it's Rafael Nadal, and absolutely anything can happen. We didn't see him coming, just returning from injury last year and winning the Australian Open, backing that up by winning the French Open as well. So absolutely anything can happen. It's Rafael Nadal anyway. The season has already produced a number of really intense matches, and world number four, Stefanos Tsitsipas, has been involved in quite a number of them. And of course, he's considered one of the favorites to win this title. It could be his first Grand Slam title, which I think is overdue, by the way. He starts his quest against Quentin Hillis, who is rising also in the rankings at the moment. So I don't think it will be easy peasy, but I think he should get to the first round. He could be facing Rinky Hijikata in the second round, Botic van der Zandschulp in the third. Yannick Sinner, this is where it could get really difficult in the fourth round. Could also meet the likes of Felix Auger-Aliassime. I think my son thinks Stefanos Tsitsipas can win this first Grand Slam title now. But then, yes, he's definitely a favorite for this. But there are still so many big names at this tournament. There's still, of course, he's a Grand Slam champion, Daniil Medvedev, and so many others. But I think there are some incredible notable first round matches at this Australian Open. It's just crazy, to be honest. There's Rafael Nadal versus Jack Draper, like I've mentioned, and Andy Murray versus Matteo Berrettini is a first round match. This is just wicked. At this point, there's Andrei Rublev versus Dominic Thiem, two really good friends and two really good players as well. We've got Dimitrov versus Aslan Karatsev. I think is a notable first round draw as well. Thanasi Kokkinakis, the Aussie, will be facing Fabio Fognini. There's also Alejandro Davidovich Fokina versus Alexander Bublik as well. It is a packed first round, and I cannot imagine how great this will get even from the second round. So the men's draw is packed. It looks really fun already, even before the tournament starts. So yes, let's begin Australian Open. Moving over to the WTA, where world number one Iga Swiatek faces a pretty complicated first round draw. Yeah, my son thinks so too. She's taking on Germany's Jule Niemeyer, who had a pretty decent 2022 season of her own, reached her first Grand Slam quarterfinal at Wimbledon, and they actually faced each other in the round of 16 of the US Open. And it was a pretty tough one for the world number one, because Niemeyer took the first set 6-2, and I remember we were ringing the upset bells, and we just might be ringing the upset bells here as well, because this is a very complicated one for the world number one. In the second round, she could be taking on Camila Osorio Serrano, and that's also kind of difficult. In the third round, Mari Buskova In the fourth round, she could be facing Danielle Collins, and she could potentially face Coco Gauff in the quarterfinals. In the semi-finals, she could be facing someone who beat her convincingly very recently at the United Cup, Jessica Pegula, who I consider a huge favorite for this title as well. So Iga Swiatek had a pretty incredible 2022 season. I don't know if she can really replicate that, but I think she'll have a good season as well. If she will win this Australian Open, I really do not know, but we'll see about that. World number two on Jabor reached two Grand Slam finals last year and definitely is one of the favorites here. She has become one of the most established players in the WTA at the moment, and she's obviously a favorite here as well. She'll be starting her quest for her first Grand Slam title against Tamara Zindanchek. She would be facing Alison Risk Amisraj in the second round, and in the third round, upset specialist Kaya Kanepi. So yeah, upset bells. Maybe in the fourth round, she could be facing Beatrice Haddad-Maia, who had a really good 2022 season. In the quarterfinals, maybe Arina Sabalenka, and then if she does get to the final, she could be taking on Iga Swiatek, who she faced last year at the US Open final as well. But Ons Jabeur is having a really good career at the moment, and it would be absolutely incredible if she could get her first Grand Slam title here at the Australian Open. World number three, Jessica Pegula, has started the year so brilliantly. She didn't lose any match at the United Cup, where she won with Team USA, and very notably got an incredible win against Iga Swiatek. Swiatek beat her 4 times last season, so this was a big mountain for her to cross, and she crossed it beautifully. She won very convincingly 6-2, 6-2, and to be honest, I think that was one of the best matches I have ever seen Jessica Pegula play. And from that match alone, I think she is one of the biggest favorites to win this Australian Open title. She'll be starting her quest for her first Grand Slam title against Jacqueline Christian. In the second round, she could be facing Alexander Sasnovich. And in the third round, this is where it gets pretty interesting, could be facing fellow American Amanda Anisimova, who is doing okay as well at the moment. In the fourth round, could be facing Petra Kvitova, multiple-time Grand Slam champion Petra Kvitova. In the quarterfinals, could be facing Maria Sakkari. In the semifinals, of course, could be facing Iga Swiatek again. But I'm sure she'll be pretty much confident this time, knowing she has gotten a win against her this year. And in the final, could be facing Ons Jabeur. But I think Jessica Pegula, that is definitely one of the players to watch at this Australian Open, and everyone who faces her should beware. World number 4, Caroline Garcia, had a pretty incredible second half of 2022. She came almost out of nowhere, didn't start the year very well, but then in the second half, just really blew our minds. Won 4 titles as well, and she's looking like she's in Grand Slam winning form, if I'm being honest. She starts her quest for the first Grand Slam title against qualifier Catherine Sebov. In the second round, could be facing fellow French player Alize Cornet. In the third round, might be facing Irina Kamila Begu. And then in the fourth round, could be facing Annette Kontaveit. From the quarterfinals, she could be facing fellow top 10 player Daria Kasatkina. In the semifinals, maybe Ons Jabeur. And in the final, Iga Swiatek. She's definitely a favorite. She has been the favorite for almost every title since she got into form in the second half of 2022. So everyone who faces Caroline Garcia is in potential trouble, really. Just like in the men's draw, the women's draw also has some wild, crazy first round matches. I mentioned Iga Swiatek versus Juliana Maya earlier. There's also Victoria Azarenka taking on Sofia Kenin, the 2020 champion, in the first round. There's Leila Fernandez versus Alize Cornet in the first round. Coco Gauff also faces a slightly complicated first round draw. She'll be taking on Katerina Siniakova. Amanda Anisimova versus Marta Kostyuk, battle of 2 young stars in the first round, is also a very notable first round draw. There's Zelena Ostapenko versus Diana Yastremska, which I expect should be very dramatic because these are 2 very dramatic players. There's also Bianca Andreescu versus Mari Buskova, Ellis Mertens versus Gabine Muguruza. I really can go on and on with the crazy first round matches we have at this Australian Open. So it's going to be pretty intense from the very first round, and I absolutely cannot wait. It starts really in some hours time, and I am super pumped. I'm sure you are pumped too, because well, this is the first Grand Slam of the year. And next week on Tennis This Week, we'll be moving into the second week of the tournament. And I will be here again. I cannot wait to talk about all the upsets, which I'm sure would have happened by then, and preview the second round with you. Hopefully, I have somebody else on the show with me next week on Tennis This Week. But my name is still Biola Solace-Chukwu, the tennis crazy lady, always tennis crazy. And I'll be back next week. See ya.